Hey there. Today we're talking about the Neural DSP Quad Cortex. It is a really handy device. I've had one for a couple months now and just thought I would maybe try to document like kind of the first part of my journey with it. Big part of that being that after I'd only had it for a couple weeks, I was flying home to Oklahoma and I had this 7-string guitar and the Quad Cortex in the front of the guitar case. And my band Planespeak wanted to start working on some new music, and that was my rig for it. I borrowed a few pedals as well, but that was the core of it. And I was just really impressed with what it could do. And I also didn't know it that well, but basically while we were there at Cardinal Song, the studio in Oklahoma City, I was just kind of crafting a sound on one preset and kept saving it along the way. And then in the weeks since, I've tweaked it just to make it a little more intuitive, a little more functional, because I just have learned more things about how to use this device along the way. And I figured I'd share it. And so I figured I would do like a walkthrough of what is in there and what I like about it, and put it on the cloud so you can check it out as well. So it's called Cardinal Song, December 2023. Let's get into it. I'm assuming you kind of know about the Quad Cortex already, so I'm not going to go too deep divey on that. Just wanted to talk about what's in here and what I like to use. So this is just the clean amp sound. Really nice. It is a capture of my Benson Vincent amp using this microphone. Really simple process to create basically a software simulation of my usual amp sound. I only have one amp in this room, and it is the Benson Vincent. So that's the clean sound, but I usually don't use it clean. I usually have it set up dirty. And one of the things about the Vincent is it's set up as sort of dirty channel, clean channel. The dirty channel is like a full-on 1-watt amp running into the clean channel. And so I captured just the dirty channel by running into the front of the amp and then out of the effects loop that runs kind of between them. So if we add the dirty channel in front of that clean sound, here's what that sounds like. And that's home base for me. Really impressed with how well that turned out. Obviously nothing is the amp in the room, but this is pretty close, and it's pretty good for being able to travel with it and record with it and all that. While we're in that kind of drive stage zone, let's stick there. My band Planespeak, we make a pedal called the Calamity Drive that was basically just it's like my signature overdrive that I just built for myself, and then we decided to produce them. And so of course I had to capture that. So just some kind of medium gain settings on the Calamity Drive running into that amp sound. Starting to get sloppy. I actually tried to record this earlier and just forgot to hit record on the audio, so losing it a bit. But that's kind of the extra core drive sound. I might not use the Calamity Drive all the time, but most of the time I do, because it gives that little bit of a push in the mids, just a bit of extra gain, and just is voiced in a way I like it. But I also have some other captures of favorite drives here. Actually, both of these are the Electronic Audio Experiments Halberd. One is set pretty lightly. And then one is pretty heavy. And of course you can drive one with the other. You know, we've got that halberd on right now. Let's hit it with the Calamity. Let's put the other halberd in, why not? Bit much, but you know, it's fun. All right, so going back to just Calamity into Vincent set dirty, all captures. Let's add some time-based stuff. So let's look at the vibrato that sits very first in the chain. For me, this is going to be an always-on vibrato. It's shallow, it's slow. If you're playing staccato, you don't really notice it, but let those notes ring out. You can hear it warbling. And then I'll usually run that into a delay. And the delay is kind of in the quote-unquote effects loop of the amp. If we're looking at it as like a traditional chain, you see the dirty channel of the amp here, and then we have this delay that we can add in before it hits the clean part of the amp. You'll hear that it's really quiet repeats, they fade off pretty quickly. It just gives a little bit of extra ambience. And when you put the vibrato into all that, I think it helps give it something like a chorus without being a chorus sound. So we keep adding layers, and I keep saying that's my core sound. We just keep getting closer to what I'll actually leave always on all the time. I put a spring reverb at the end of this, and by the way, you'll see that it splits stereo into 2 amps and then recombines in mono. That's just there in case you want to run it in stereo. It's handy to kind of have it set up and ready to go, but they're just kind of splitting and then recombining. And here's just a little bit of spring reverb after those amps. And that helps give just that kind of ringy, springy ambience that is less distinct than the delays that are there. Now let's talk about this very last thing in the chain. So this was a really fun moment in the studio where Mike Trepanier, he's the producer, engineer, mixed our last record. He does a lot of great work for and with us. And we were focused on drum sounds at the time, but we're also just kind of recording live in the room. And I was playing, and I was like, there's something, I didn't vocalize this, but he could tell I was trying to find something. I was trying to warm up the sound. I was trying to do something that I couldn't quite place even myself. And he said, I think I'm hearing what you're, based on what I'm hearing right now, I think I've got an idea for you, because maybe this is what you're going for. And turns out he had captured a bunch of the preamps in the studio. And he pointed to a few. He basically showed me how to use the Cortex Cloud and, add Cardinal Song as a friend and look at what captures he had made. And he pointed to a few like tape machine preamps, including an Ampex 440. I think it was modified, but it's that studio's Ampex 440. And it just did exactly the thing. So again, just a refresher on where we were at before, and then I'll kick it on. And it warms it up ever so slightly. It does that little bit of kind of transient smearing, like not quite compression, but compression, that implaceable preampy thing. And I just left it on the whole time after that. It was on every single song. So that after all that, this I would say maybe minus the Calamity Drive, but everything but that would have been on the entire time, just every song that we tracked. But then of course we had to have some other textures. Can't use the same sound all the time, otherwise where's the fun in that? There's an octave here, you can add that. I don't know if I actually use that on anything, but it's just fun to have around. There's a tape delay, simple. For when you need something more rhythmic, a little clearer than the always on delay. There's a chorus that sits between the always on delay and the clean amps. Used sparingly. I generally like modulation before drives, but there is a character to that was just really special on at least one of the songs. And then we have this effects loop, which engages basically what's in the send and return 1 in this case of the Quad Cortex, which is Chase Bliss Mood Mark II and Old Blood Noise Endeavor's Dweller. Dweller is something that I just always have to have on my board. Just nothing makes the sounds it does. So those two together add this. So you can't do that all the time. You kind of want to, but you probably shouldn't. That's great for just adding textures. It's nice to be able to turn the two on and off together. That was one thing on the earlier preset. I just had basically in one running out to send one, and then it ran through the pedals, and then came back into row 3 through input 2. But that meant that when you fired up the preset, if you didn't have anything in the effects loop, you didn't get any sound. So as it is now, you can just turn that effects loop on and off, and that way you don't have to have something plugged in to easily get sound out of this preset. In the studio, I was borrowing the 29 pedals Flower overdrive. Really nice, versatile thing. Basically just wanted something in front of it so that I could have some knobs to tweak. I also had a Calamity Drive and a Halberd and some other drives around, but just ended up using the Flower more often than not. But I don't have one at home, so I put a Small Sound Big Sound Mini in front because they are both just kind of drives that are somewhat amp-like and can get into fuzzy territory. So just to give you an idea of what that'll do, I'll go ahead and turn the chorus on because nice with that. And that sort of like single note bending stuff just really liked having an extra drive to just drive everything further. But that pretty much covers it. That's this preset. That's kind of the initial stage of my journey with the Neural DSP Quad Cortex. I'll have this up to download. My username is just danpechacek, I think. I'll have to double check that. I'll put up a link. But it's got the captures that I've used in here are available, as well as just this preset as a whole, which has that tape machine in it as well. It's just a really fun sound. So if you've got one of these, check it out. Feel free to let me know what you think. If you don't have one, then maybe this demo is just a fun way to get further acquainted with at least what I personally like about it. So cool. Here's one more chord.